everyone, welcome to a video about a solo I composed combining phrases by guitar legends BIRELI LAGRENE and WAWAU ADLER on the standard Undecided. Let's go! I came up with this idea last week when WAWAU ADLER was here in the studio recording for Dennis Cheng's guitar school, and I was watching him play solo after solo, and they were all great solos, a lot of them heavily inspired by Django, which is something that WAWAU is an expert at. He can really channel that sound and that style, but he also has his own style, and he can switch between those two ways of playing seamlessly. And watching those recordings was very inspiring. But what was even more inspiring was when we got to jam after the recordings, and we played some songs. I think you can find some videos on Facebook, and we played a tune called Undecided. I was playing violin and WAWAU was of course playing guitar, and he played a solo which was very Django-like. And I thought to myself, I really should transcribe that solo, so I did. And then I was checking for other versions on YouTube, and I found this version by BIRELI LAGRENE, playing a completely different kind of solo, but also a great solo, of course. And then I came to this idea because WAWAU ADLER and BIRELI are great friends. They often play together, they hang out, and BIRELI is visiting this studio in January again to record with Dennis. So I put all of those ingredients in a pot, and then I came up with this idea of writing a combined solo, switching between both guitar players and showing you that even though the styles are very different, the combination still generates a coherent solo. So let's check out phrase number 1. This first phrase is a phrase that WAWAU ADLER played. By the way, I will link both versions of Undecided, both WAWAU and BIRELI, in the description. But it's not really a WAWAU phrase because it's a phrase that comes from Django. I've heard many people play it, also Stochelo. And it's also not very difficult to play. Just be precise with when you pick the notes and when you have a pull-off. There's only one pull-off, right? The first 4 notes are picked, and then there's a pull-off. It's very easy to get it confused, and then you get something very sloppy. So there's this D that's both a fretted D on the A string and the open D string. And then there's some chords. Those chords I just added in. That's to make the transitions between two very different phrases at two very different places of the guitar. So I just put in a F7 chord, which is the chord we're at, and then I put a D7 9 to anticipate the next chord D7, and then we arrive at the next phrase. This is a BIRELI phrase. Well, the beginning, again, it's really a Django thing. I think it's really smart because you have this 2-5-1 consisting of a dominant chord, D7, so not minor 7, and then G7. And that can be tricky to play over because it doesn't happen that much, right? Usually we're used to playing D minor 7, G7. And over the D minor 7, you can just play your G7 phrases because it's basically the same chord, D minor 7 and G7. But D7 and G7, those are very different chords, and they only last 1 bar, so you have to make a quick switch. And this is a smart way to approach it, because what you're basically doing is playing a kind of a bluesy lick. You should see it as C blues with the minor third. So that's something that you could take away from it. If you encounter this progression 2-5-1 with the 2 being a dominant chord, you can just play some bluesy things of the main key. So in this case would be C, because it fits over both chords, both D7 and G7. Right, so is a smart thing to play. And then we get this D flat major arpeggio. D flat major, and might sound strange if I say it like that because we're in the key of C, but it's not, because it's just a tritone substitute. If you have G7, which is the chord that plays, and I would replace the G bass by D flat, I get basically the same chord with a different bass. So D flat 7 and G7 are the same chord. So just playing a D flat major triad is playing the tritone substitute triad without the 7. Now Biréli plays a different fingering. He plays it like this. So he jumps back for the D flat, which makes sense because my way, if you use gypsy jazz picking, you would get 1, 2, 3, 4 downstrokes in a row, which is a little bit tricky, but I do it like this because then I can also play that lick in the key of F, right? Then I would have to play it here, playing a G flat major triad. And I wouldn't be able to do that if I use Biréli's fingering because I run out of neck. The trick is to view that last downstroke as the beginning of a sweep. That relaxes the hand and will enable you to play all those downstrokes with a more relaxed posture. Let's go to the next phrase. This is a wawau phrase, also heavily Django inspired, and that's Django's way of playing blues, right? Playing that pattern where you have the flat 3, the minor third, and the minor 7th, just on the major chord. That's a typical Django bluesy lick. Now he plays that on top of the F7, and this lick would fit both on C major, even though it has the minor third as a bluesy thing, but would also fit on every chord in the blues. And what is the second chord in the C blues? It's F7. Would also fit on G7, by the way. Just a bluesy thing. But wawau actually starts out emphasizing the major third on C, and then switching to that lick, which is even more effective because then you really get the change of playing an E natural in the C chord to an E flat in an F7 chord. But just remember that this lick would fit over both chords. Let's go to the next phrase. And here we have a really smart trick or effect by Biréli. He's faced with that difficult or tricky 2-5-1 with the 2 chord being a dominant. So D7, G7, C. And what he does is not playing those chords, but he's playing D7, D minor 7. So for the D7, he just plays a diminished arpeggio starting from the third. So the third of D7 is F sharp. Play a straight diminished arpeggio up, starting with the triplet. It's a typical gypsy jazz thing to do, or Django thing to play a diminished arpeggio on the dominant chord, starting on the third. Now he arrives at the G7, but now he plays a D minor 7 lick and resolving that to the C. So now you avoid playing 2 dominant chords in a row and maybe the danger of playing twice the same kind of sound, right? Because if I would do, then I would get that altered dominant sound twice in a row. I would get a D7 flat 9. That's what happens when you play a diminished arpeggio. And now I would get the G7 flat 9 sound, which is playing twice the same kind of sound. Of course, different chord, different root, but the feeling is the same. But by playing a D minor 7 lick, you create a different sound, a different feeling. And then this resolution is a typical Django resolution. You play the C major 7 arpeggio, and then you play a B diminished down and resolving to the root. That's a typical Django thing, which is something that you should be able to do in every key. You play the major triad of the 1 chord up, or major 7 in this case, Both are fine. And then you play a diminished arpeggio half step down from that one chord. So with the key of C, so B diminished down, and resolve it back to a note of the one chord. And you can do this starting on any note of the one chord. In this case, it starts from the major 7, which is the most common one, but I could also start maybe on the 3rd of C, and you would get something like this. 3, 4. Or I could start on the 5th of C, which is a G. And you could come up with all kinds of variations, maybe with a major 7 chord, or you could play the other way down, right? So you play down a major chord and then up the diminished chord, although that's not that common. The most important thing is that you realize that you play this on top of the one chord. So you don't play this on the G7, just on the one chord, arpeggio on the one chord up, diminished arpeggio down, and then resolve to a note of the one chord. That's it for this video, and I can hear you say, wait a minute, there was this great bridge and the 3rd A. That's correct, and I will make another video this week, especially for my patrons over at patreon.com, discussing the rest of the solo. So if you want to check out the bridge and the 3rd A, go check out my Patreon site. And if you join there at the €5 tier, you can download the tab that you saw on screen today, and also tab of all the videos I made in the past 2 months. Or if you join there at the €10 tier, you can actually see the exclusive video I'm gonna make, but also many other exclusive videos. If you like this video, please give it a like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, all that good stuff, which really helps my channel grow. And hopefully I will see you over on my Patreon site or right here on YouTube in the next video. Bye.